I never thought much about how I looked until the day my roommate walked in on me changing and didn't look away. I mean, I've always been pretty average, you know? Nothing special. Just a regular guy trying to make it through college without embarrassing myself too badly. But that moment, that one frozen second when our eyes met and he didn't immediately turn around or apologize or do any of the normal things people do when they accidentally invade someone's privacy, that moment changed everything. Let me back up a little. His name is Kieran, and we've been roommates for about 7 months now. We got matched randomly through the university housing system at the start of our junior year. I remember when I first met him, thinking he was probably going to be one of those guys who was too cool to actually be friends with his roommate. He's got this dark, wavy hair that always looks perfectly messy, these intense green eyes, and this confidence that just radiates off him. Not in an arrogant way, but in that effortless way some people have where they just seem comfortable in their own skin. Meanwhile, I've spent most of my life feeling like I'm wearing clothes that don't quite fit right, even when they do. But Kieran surprised me. From day one, he was actually friendly. Not just polite roommate friendly, but genuinely interested in getting to know me. We'd stay up late talking about everything from our favourite movies to our most embarrassing childhood memories to what we actually wanted to do with our lives beyond the majors we'd declared to satisfy our parents. He had this way of listening that made me feel like what I was saying actually mattered, like he was really hearing me and not just waiting for his turn to talk. I started noticing things about him pretty quickly. The way he'd run his hand through his hair when he was concentrating on an assignment. How he'd make this little humming sound when he was cooking, completely unconscious of it. The fact that he always smelled like cedar and something citrusy, this cologne that would linger in the apartment after he left. I told myself I was just being observant, that I noticed these things about all my friends. But deep down, even then, I think I knew I was lying to myself. The thing is, I'd never really let myself think about guys that way before. I'd had a girlfriend in high school, and it was fine, I guess. We held hands and kissed, and everyone said we were cute together, but there was always something missing, something I couldn't quite name. After we broke up before college, I just told myself I was focusing on my studies, that I'd figure out the relationship stuff later. It was easier than examining why I never felt that spark everyone talked about, why I felt more interested in my lab partner Jake's smile than in any of the girls who'd shown interest in me. But living with Kieran made it harder to ignore. I'd catch myself watching him when he'd come back from the gym, his shirt clinging to his chest, his face flushed from exercise. Or I'd feel this weird flutter in my stomach when he'd laugh at one of my jokes, this genuine full-body laugh that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. I started looking forward to our late-night conversations more than anything else in my day, staying up way too late just because I didn't want him to go to his room yet, didn't want to break whatever spell we were under when it was just the two of us, and the rest of the world felt very far away. I tried to push it down, whatever it was. I'd remind myself that he probably had a girlfriend, even though he never mentioned one. That he was just being a good roommate and friend. That these feelings, these confusing, intense feelings, were just me being lonely or stressed about school, or any number of other explanations that didn't require me to confront what was actually happening inside me. Then came that Thursday afternoon. I'd just gotten back from the gym myself, something I'd started doing more regularly, though I definitely wasn't ready to examine my motivations for that too closely. Kieran wasn't supposed to be home. He had a late class on Thursdays that didn't end until 6, and it was only 4:30. So I didn't think twice about stripping off my sweaty gym clothes right there in our shared living space. I was standing there in just my boxer briefs, reaching for the clean shirt I'd left on the couch that morning, when I heard the door open. I spun around, and there he was, frozen in the doorway with his backpack still on his shoulder and his keys in his hand. We both just stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. And here's the thing. Here's what made my heart start racing and my skin feel too hot and my brain short-circuit completely. He didn't look away. His eyes met mine, and there was something in his expression I'd never seen before. Something intense and vulnerable and almost hungry. Then his gaze dropped, just for a moment, travelling down my body before snapping back up to my face, and the look on his face was pure want. I should have grabbed my shirt. I should have said something like, "Hey man, didn't hear you come in," or made a joke about the awkwardness of the situation. But I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. Because in that moment I saw my own feelings reflected back at me in his eyes, and it was terrifying and exhilarating, and I felt more seen than I'd ever felt in my entire life. He cleared his throat, and the spell broke. "Class got cancelled," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "Professor's sick. I'm sorry, I should have knocked or something." "It's your apartment too," I managed to say, finally grabbing my shirt and pulling it on, my hands shaking slightly. No big deal, but we both knew it was a big deal. The energy between us had shifted, and there was no going back to pretending whatever this was didn't exist. He dropped his backpack by the door and walked past me to the kitchen, and I could feel the heat radiating off him as he passed, could smell that cedar and citrus scent that made my head spin. The next few days were torture. We were both hyper-aware of each other in a way we hadn't been before, or maybe in a way we'd been trying not to be. Every accidental touch felt electric. Every shared glance felt loaded with meaning. We'd start conversations and then trail off, both of us seeming to forget what we were saying mid-sentence. The easy comfort we'd built over months felt replaced by this tension that was equal parts awkward and thrilling. I started spending more time in my room, telling myself I needed to focus on my midterm papers. But really, I was trying to sort through the chaos in my head. I'd lie on my bed staring at the ceiling, finally letting myself think the thoughts I'd been avoiding. I'm attracted to my roommate. I'm attracted to a guy. I might be gay or bi, or something I don't have a word for yet. And the scariest thought of all, I think he might feel the same way about me. It was late on a Tuesday night, almost 1 a.m, when I finally emerged from my room to get some water. I thought Kieran would be asleep, but he was sitting on our couch in the dark, just the glow from his phone screen illuminating his face. He looked up when he heard me, and even in the darkness, I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. "Can't sleep either?" he asked quietly. I shook my head, getting my water, but then, instead of retreating back to my room like I'd planned, I found myself sitting down on the other end of the couch. We sat in silence for a while, and it wasn't the comfortable silence we used to share. This silence was heavy with everything we weren't saying. Finally he spoke. "We need to talk about what happened last week." My heart started pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Yeah," I said. "I guess we do." He set his phone down and turned to face me more fully. "I've been going crazy trying to figure out how to bring this up. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, and I really don't want to lose you as a friend, but I can't keep pretending that everything's normal when it's not." "I know," I said. "I've been avoiding you. I'm sorry. Don't apologize." He ran his hand through his hair, that gesture I'd come to know so well. I'm the one who should apologize. The way I looked at you, that wasn't okay. You didn't consent to that. I felt something loosen in my chest, some knot of tension I'd been carrying. "You don't need to apologize for looking. I didn't mind." His eyes met mine in the darkness, searching. "You didn't?" I took a deep breath, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff about to jump. "No, I didn't." The silence that followed was different, charged with possibility. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally, "and you can totally tell me it's none of my business, and we can forget I ever asked." "Okay. Have you ever thought about guys? That way?" My mouth went dry. I could lie. I could laugh it off and change the subject, and maybe we could go back to being just roommates, just friends, and never speak of this again. But I was so tired of lying, even to myself, especially to myself. "I'm thinking about one right now," I said quietly. I heard him inhale sharply. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He moved closer, closing some of the distance between us on the couch. "I've been thinking about you for months, since probably October if I'm being honest, maybe even before that. I kept telling myself I was imagining things, that you were straight and I was just setting myself up for disappointment, but the way you looked at me that day, when I walked in on you," he paused. "I wasn't imagining that, was I?" "No," I said. "You weren't imagining it. So what does this mean? What do we do now?" It was a good question, maybe the most important question. What did we do now? I'd spent my whole life thinking I knew who I was, what I wanted, and now everything felt uncertain and new and absolutely terrifying. But I looked at Kieran, really looked at him, at the vulnerability in his eyes and the hope barely contained in his expression, and I realized that maybe uncertainty wasn't always a bad thing. Maybe sometimes it was just the beginning of something real. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've never done this before, any of this. I'm still figuring out what it means, what I want. But I know I don't want to keep pretending I don't feel this, whatever this is. We can figure it out together," he said softly. No pressure. We can take it as slow as you need. What if I mess this up? What if I'm no good at this? He smiled, and even in the darkness I could see the warmth in it. Then we'll figure that out together too. I'm not exactly an expert here either. I've only been out to myself for like 2 years, and I've never actually dated a guy. Never met anyone who made me want to take that risk. Until you. Something in my chest cracked open at those words, and before I could overthink it, before fear could stop me, I reached out and took his hand. His fingers immediately intertwined with mine, and the simple touch sent warmth flooding through me. We sat there holding hands in the dark, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world, and also like something momentous, something that was changing the entire trajectory of my life. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He moved closer, slowly, giving me every opportunity to change my mind. And then his lips were on mine, soft and tentative and perfect. It was nothing like kissing my high school girlfriend. This felt right in a way I hadn't known kissing could feel right, like something clicking into place, like coming home. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless and dizzy and more certain than I'd ever been about anything. "Okay," I said. "Okay, I think I'm definitely into guys, or at least definitely into you." He laughed. This beautiful sound full of joy and relief. "Good, that's really good, because I'm definitely into you too." We stayed up the rest of the night talking, really talking now without all the walls we'd been keeping up. He told me about realizing he was gay in high school but being too scared to come out, about the handful of guys he'd hooked up with at parties but never let himself actually care about. I told him about my relationship with my ex-girlfriend, about how I'd always felt like I was performing a role rather than being myself, about how confused and scared and strangely excited I felt about all of this. As the sun started to rise, painting our apartment in shades of pink and gold, I realized I was leaning against him, his arm around my shoulders, my head resting on his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, and I felt this overwhelming sense of peace. Like I'd been holding my breath my entire life and was finally able to exhale. That was 3 months ago. We've been taking it slow, figuring things out as we go. Some days are harder than others. I still have moments of panic where I wonder what my family will think, what my friends from home will say. I haven't told anyone yet except my best friend from high school, and that conversation was terrifying, even though she was completely supportive. But then I'll catch Kieran looking at me with this expression of complete adoration, or he'll grab my hand as we're walking back from class, or I'll wake up with him wrapped around me, and I remember why this is worth it. I'm learning that being true to yourself is both the hardest and the most liberating thing you can do. I'm learning that love doesn't always look the way you expect it to, and that's okay. I'm learning that sometimes the best things in life come from the moments that terrify you most, from taking risks and being vulnerable and letting yourself be seen. My roommate walked in on me changing and didn't look away, and it turned out that was exactly what I needed. To be seen, really seen, and to finally see myself clearly too. To understand that the thing I'd been missing my entire life wasn't something wrong with me, but simply the courage to be honest about who I am and what I want. We're still roommates. We're also boyfriends now, though that word still feels strange and wonderful on my tongue. We still have our late-night conversations, but now they're punctuated with kisses. We still watch movies on our couch, but now I'm curled up against him, his arms around me. We still cook dinner together, but now we dance in the kitchen to whatever music is playing, and I've never felt more at home in my own skin. I don't know what the future holds. We're taking it one day at a time, building something real and honest and ours. But I do know this. I've never been happier. I've never felt more like myself. And that moment when he walked in and didn't look away, when he saw me and let me see him in return, that was the moment my life really began.